I'm Jason Klom, and this is the Comedy on Vinyl podcast. The year is 1961, the album, An Evening with Mike Nichols and Elaine May, the artist, Mike Nichols and Elaine May. And my guest this week, somehow, is Fran Brill. Thank you so much for doing this show.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure, Jason.
I was so thrilled that you not only agreed to do it, but were ready to do it quickly, and also picked an album that I absolutely adore. So when did you first hear this? Because by the way you spoke about it, it sounded like you heard it right when it came out.
Well, it came out in 1960, and I don't know that I knew about it then. But,
okay.
When I went off to college, I was aware of this album, and my roommate. Well, actually, there were six of us in a suite at Boston University Fine Arts School. And I just clicked immediately with one of the other gals there. And she also was a Mike Nichols and Elaine May aficionado. Mm-hmm. And the two of us would do riffs on the album. And, I don't know. I just think they were so brilliant and such a terrific example of certainly comedians, but actors who do improvisation. And I'm quite sure that this wasn't, I'm going to guess that they had done these routines before they put them on an album, don't you think?
Yeah, from what I understand, they had, sort of the same policy that Second City adopted, and possibly even quicker, which is let's improvise. Actually, I think from what I understand, they improvised a little backstage and then came up with almost like a set list from there. That's the way I've heard it. I could be wrong, but it's definitely
that makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's so smooth. But I was also thinking about how really any good comic actor or puppeteer, how the same things apply no matter what the venue isn't the right word. I mean, it's the two people who have directly opposite objectives. Mm-hmm. And I just think what they did was so clear in that first cut, which is the telephone. Mm-hmm. You've got a guy who desperately wants his dime back and a protagonist on the other side who cannot get it through to him that he knows he doesn't want to lose his dime, and she doesn't want to give it away, and it's just terrific. And at the end, usually somebody batters down the other. Mm-hmm. But this is any great comedy team, and I don't know why it resonated with me, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's not like I grew up trying to be a comedian. I was rather very serious about acting, and I, in college played Lady Anne and Richard III, and I did Shaw, and I did, all of these things. But I always loved laughing. Who doesn't? Mm-hmm. And I loved comedy performers. So I glommed onto these guys. But I was thinking about even how it applied to, I don't know, Prairie Dawn and Cookie Monster, in that, his objective always was to get to the cookie or to do whatever it was. And Prairie Dawn always wanted to press on with the pageant or saying the letter of the day. And when you have two characters like that who are very, very strong and really adamant, it's very humorous.
I mean, come on, it's hard to resist. I mean, if it's something that appeals not only to children who are barely able to form anything, right, and then adults who like us, feel like we're sophisticated when we laugh at something like Mike Nichols and Elaine May, then you're right. It's a dynamic that is unavoidable. Right. It's interesting that, obviously you would bring that up for those who do not know. You are the voice of Prairie Dawn on Sesame Street.
Can I just correct you for a second?
Please, yes.
This is the Puppeteer's Lament. I played the character.
Uh-huh.
If you say was the voice of,
that's fair. That is fair.
No, everybody does it, but really and truly, the puppeteers do their own manipulation and their
Yes.
own voices. So perform the character of is our very, very favorite way to describe ourselves.
That is fair. As somebody who, as a child, really wanted to be a puppeteer, I feel bad about that. Yes,
Oh, did you
yes. Oh
really? Oh
yeah, I
my
mean that's
gosh.
why I'm so in love with puppets and but
Oh,
also here's the thing is it's then turned into a love of voice work. So then my brain obviously switches gears on accident. So yes,
yeah,
you
I get it.
performed
I get
Prairie
it.
Dawn. You get it, but I do understand that it is a specific very complicated skill because you're literally putting not only your voice but your own body into another body, and syncing those two up
Yeah.
is not as simple as it is meant to
That's why
look.
it takes one person to do it, because it really would be very difficult to have one person puppeteer and
Mm-hmm.
somebody off camera. It's been done under
Sure.
duress for various extreme reasons, but nobody comes out smelling well, you know.
Whenever I've heard that somebody's doing it that way, I'm like, A, why, and B, that's insane to me. That just doesn't make sense, and it's not it's not, again, not a full bodied performance in the same way.
Right.
Um,
It
those
has
are
to do mostly like what if you play two characters and they're talking to each other in
right.
the scene? Then there's a need for the puppeteer to lip sync to your track,
Mm-hmm.
let's say. But it's really messy and difficult to do well. So one prefers not to do that. But anyway, yes. So I did Dawn, who started out as a very, very. But these were my instructions from Jim. After being a Muppet for like 6 months and having never puppeteered before, and he said we'd like you to create a character who would be very sweet, docile, the quintessential little girl. At least that's what they were in Jim Henson's mind. And because before then, all the guys would do the female characters because there
Mm-hmm.
were no female Muppet performers until I came along. So, and I thought the guys were hysterical
Uh-huh.
doing female voices, but women's lib and all that stuff was beginning to be very loud in the cosmos, and the producers felt they really needed to hire a bona fide female. So I was at the right place at the right time.
So
And
you kind of walked into felt Shakespeare, where all the men were playing all the parts.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I never even thought about it that way, but you're right. In the oldie timey days, all those roles of females were played by adolescent boys, or yeah, you're absolutely right.
What was your? I mean, I think all the different properties that are under the Jim Henson balloon or have been over time, Sesame Street and the Muppets. I feel like every performer is associated with having either learned or already knowing a ton of improv skills, because that's what people talk to when they meet a Muppet for the first time. The reason they start bawling their eyes out is because they are talking to a Muppet. They're not. There's no person involved seemingly, because of the intense acting skill and the intense improv skill. Being able to improvise in one of those
Yeah, yeah, I guess you're
characters.
right. But I'm sure you've probably heard this before, and it is an interesting phenomenon. But even with adults, if you've got a puppet on your hand,
Uh-huh.
they start talking to that puppet. They do not look back at Fran Brill anymore. They talk to the puppet. It's a force of nature of some kind.
Uh-huh.
But children, adults, they all kind of fall in line and start talking to the puppet. Once in a while, you'll see a child who's kind of comprehending this in real time, looking, back to your eyes, and then they swing back to the puppet because the puppet is a stronger source.
Mhm.
It's weird.
I mean, it draws, I guess, not only the eye but all the attention. The funny thing is, though, is just I guess we could just do one of the tech things just so that people know you're not a ventriloquist. You're not doing ventriloquism while you're there. You're just
No,
full
no,
on
that's
talking.
ventriloquism is much too hard.
But you're talking, and people still their instinct is to look at the big fluffy colorful thing that's on your hand, and
That is correct.
it's so fascinating.
But yeah, but when you get that thing on your arm, and that character is very real to you, Of course you can improvise in that because the puppet takes over.
Mm-hmm.
I think we as the performer have very little to do with it. It's like what Frank always says. If somebody says, do the voice of, it's not that. It's really doing the character
Mm-hmm.
because you don't think of, oh, I've now got to do Zoe's voice or
Mm-hmm.
Cookie Monster's voice. It's the voice comes from the puppet, and somehow you challenge that by seeing what the puppet looks like, and you know I don't know, to me this is so simple,
Mm-hmm.
but probably to other people they think, I've sat in a corner all day thinking of a voice for this character, but I just look at a puppet and a voice will come to me, which is why when I used to audition for cartoon voices or something, I would say, do you have a drawing, a picture, anything of the character?
Mm-hmm.
Because if somebody just says, well, it's a worm, I don't know. I just show me a picture and I'll come up with a voice or two, or there are three maybe, but that helps me tremendously.
I mean, it's not unlike if, the actors who say they can't get into it until they finally have their wardrobe. And once they've got the wardrobe, they're
Yes.
like,
The
this is it.
shoes.
I
The
live here. The shoes,
shoes.
yes, it's a big one.
That the shoes are what really finally gives you who this person is. It makes such a difference. Yeah. But you're right. The costume, the makeup, the hair, that helps a whole lot. Absolutely, as a human.
I would love to know, obviously, there's no way to know. I would love to know what these characters come from in terms of Nichols and May's relationship, other than wouldn't this be a funny combination? It's just the way that they can play these varying types of relationships off of one another that is so impressive, I think, and to do
Well,
it
I
seemingly
I
on a
think they
dime.
were both just very good actors.
Yeah.
And, maybe without even labeling it, they knew that the comedy tension happens when somebody wants something very strongly and the other person wants to resist that with equal strength. But I also enjoyed hearing Elaine May uh, try to be three different persnickety phone operators,
Yes.
you know? And it sounds to me as if she preceded that sort of nasal hello thing before Lily Tomlin came
For
up with
sure.
that, or maybe Lily Tomlin ripped her off. No offense, steal from the best,
Mm-hmm.
but they both sort of came up with this hello kind of voice,
Yeah.
which I find was sort of, well, anyway, they were really good. And can I just add one more thing?
Oh yeah, please.
Um, I don't know if you're familiar with the play Hurly Burly.
I'm not. I apologize.
Okay, it was written by, oh my gosh, very famous American playwright, and I can't think of his name right now. I should have looked it up. But anyway, it was done on Broadway,
Mm-hmm.
and I think then it was revived on Broadway. But this is classic Michael Nichols directing.
Mm-hmm.
He had sort of this scene between a man and a woman, and he was desperately trying to get this girl to take off her clothes,
Mm-hmm.
and she was trying really hard to resist him, and it was very amusing to watch because while she's saying, oh no, I can't, I really shouldn't, and doing all of this, she's literally taking off her boots. And I said, oh my gosh, that is so great. That is so perfect. Isn't that what human beings do? They very often in situations are saying one thing, but meaning the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love that. I just thought that was one of the most brilliant pieces of directing I'd ever seen. This was, a while ago, but
Mm-hmm.
I think he was all about that. That's how you
Yeah.
really cut to what is the character really feeling, as opposed to what are the words coming out of the character's mouth.
The play was written by David Rabe, by the way. I looked it up
Yes.
for you. There we are. The careers after this that both Mike Nichols and Elaine May had, one being more visible, the other being, even though one's behind camera, he was more recognized for his talent than maybe she has been for hers.
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not surprised by, but I do not find to be fair. But it is interesting to see them go on to be so heavily influential, not just in comedy, but you're right. It's so much them understanding human nature that I
Yes.
guess works its way into everything they do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. But Elaine May was also a script doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was called in and never even got credit, perhaps because it was
Right.
too, yeah. On, if somebody had a script that wasn't going well, they would call her in. I think it's been interesting to see her in some of these acting jobs she's done.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Law and Order or a movie in the last few years where
Oh
she,
wow.
yeah, yeah, wait.
I'm
A
gonna pull
mind
that
is a
up too.
terrible thing to lose. It just, I can't remember all of these things, but anyway, she has done some acting work,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as has her daughter, Jeannie Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
And good for her. She's still in the game.
Yeah. I
I also love that one where the mother and son, where on the album, the Mike Nichols and Elaine May album, An Evening with Mike Nichols and Elaine May, where it's a mother and son, and she's sort of that kind of mother where nothing is ever enough, and the son is, trying to really plead with his mother to stop going on and on about it. And finally, at the end of the sketch, she has turned him into a baby, and he's actually using a little baby voice. It was just great because that kind of a mother does infantilize a
mm-hmm.
son or a daughter. Anyway, they were just brilliant.
I've always loved that because it hits on this one thing that, while I might not have been around for, if you listen to enough comedy or watch enough comedy from a certain time, you become perfectly aware what's in the zeitgeist and what is funny. And the idea of
Hmm.
people openly talking about being in analysis at the time was a true thing.
Yes.
And like, this is
Yes.
like the most, if not Freudian, definitely like
Oh my
psychology
God.
based, and I just
You
love that they just worked that onto a sketch.
very astute of you. That didn't even occur to me, but you're right. Going to a shrink
Uh-huh.
was like so new and kind of weird and unaccepted and all
Right.
sorts of things like that. Yeah, that was really, really great. But even the Sid Caesar Comedy Hour,
Uh-huh.
that's another thing. If you've got time on your hands and just we have my husband and I have a collection of that Sid Caesar Comedy Hour, and gosh, those sketches are so good.
They're
They
wonderful.
just, you know, there's so much good comedy now as well. My
Hmm.
golly, all of these stand-ups, it's amazing. And I love to see that some of them are from Arab or Muslim countries, and
Hmm.
people that I don't know, 25 years ago would never, you never would have heard a comedian from someplace that different.
Right.
And they're immigrants' children, of course, who've adapted to America very easily and rapidly, and they come out saying, "I want to be a stand-up." I just love it.
Me too. It's I think going to, or at least I hope it's going to have this potential to reinvigorate comedy the way, all so much early recorded comedy, because that's what I'm mostly interested in. So
Mm,
much of it was ethnic and it was meant to be reflective. The most of the ethnic stuff was meant to be reflective rather than making fun of another ethnicity. So the stuff where it
right,
was, predominantly Jewish people talking
right.
about they were either first or second generation sometimes. I love what that did to comedy in a positive
Oh,
way. And
yes. Oh, sure. Of course. Well, like everything, you write about what you know, you do comedy about what you know, or stereotypes. Yeah.
for sure. Do you on this album? So just for those who we've only discussed it a few times on the show, and I love getting everybody's different perspective on it. There's one sketch about it, one called Telephone, one called Adultery, one called Disc Jockey, and one called Mother and Son, and they play a few different characters in Adultery as well. Um, But I with Telephone, I think it has a similar kind of a similar arc to Mother and Son, if only because he just sounds so much more beaten up by the end of it too, just in a different way. It's just the whole. There's just this whole. I think I've stolen from him in turn. Speaking of
Yes,
stealing from the best. There's just
of
so
course.
much. Just like, listen, operator, I heard the dime. Hit all those other dimes. Like I know that I've done that
That
before.
was excellent. That was a very excellent ripoff.
Thank you. But her doing the whole that's K as in knife. Oh my god.
Yes! Oh my gosh! That was perfect. Oh, I love that. Yes, something as ridiculous as that. Yeah, it's I'm kind of shocked that there's only one, two, three, four.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, what was on the other side of the album? How could there
Right?
be
I know. Yeah, it's only like
perspective?
16 minutes aside on this one.
I think is there another side?
No, that's it. That's it. I double checked, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's very strange.
It is
Uh,
strange, but it's get in, get out. You give them what they want and leave, I guess.
yes, I also thought that adultery was resonant of Caesar
Mhm.
because he and that crew also did, especially since Caesar was very good at making up languages without making any sense,
Yes.
just words that or nonsense syllables that sounded like French or Italian or
Mhm.
German or whatever they were going for. And I don't think anybody did that better than Sid Caesar.
Oh my gosh. And I guess he grew up in his father's deli. At least that's the story he tells. Grew
Oh,
up in his
really?
father's deli. Yeah. And he was in a part of New York that was so heavily just, so many
Oh,
varieties of people from different countries where he would just sit there and like, oh, German? Okay, cool. Oh, Polish? Cool. And he would listen and listen and listen.
oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Isn't that
That's
interesting?
very interesting. Yeah. Well, he was proficient in terms
Oh,
of
yeah.
doing it. So that makes sense if he heard all these dialects around him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, again, as you say, write what you know, perform what you know. You grow up around it, like it's in your
Yeah.
blood at some point.
Yep. Boy, I didn't even think about that. That makes a lot of sense. Sure. Um, are we just talking about this album?
I always like to talk about the album and then move into the person's
Oh, okay.
comedy influences too, because I would also like to talk about your influences and your life as a
Well,
an
one
actor.
of the other things on the album, and I thought it was interesting on Disc Jockey, that cut, where you have a ditzy, what we now would call a Marilyn Monroe type, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's very sexy and whispers all her words and all of that thing. Now, that prototype, I don't think exists very much anymore. I don't know that you could get away with that in
Mm-hmm.
this day and age. What do you think?
That's hard to say. Yeah, I mean, if it was based on somebody specific, I think that's one of the reasons it works because it doesn't seem, or at least to me, at least in this case, isn't played as sexist. It's not played in the same way. It's because they're both vapid, and I like that about it. It doesn't seem to be uneven handed. Like he is just an unrelenting self promoter and name dropper, and she is just a woman who's been thrown into a
Yeah,
pool with sharks, and she does not get it. She is not quite sure
right,
where she is.
right. But that kind of character,
Mm-hmm.
which was quintessentially a blonde,
Sure.
also, that was a very easy character to play
Mm-hmm.
back in the day. And I can't say that I haven't played that character myself, because I find it funny, but I don't think it would be very funny today. I have a feeling that people, women would object to that. And
I can see what you're saying. Yeah. As to what might be underneath that, yeah, you're probably right. You probably right.
yeah, I think so. And it's too bad because it was a very clear type,
Mm-hmm.
and people would picture or imagine exactly who that was. And I don't know. I have a feeling you could not do that, as a puppeteer. I don't know. I don't think so. I have a feeling that somebody on production side or, our puppet captain or something would say, is there any other voice you can think of?
Right, right.
You know?
I would love to know what your history is with improv, and I mean, if you, I don't know how prevalent it was at acting schools when you were, coming up.
Well, I don't think we did a lot of improv. No, I remember a lot of history of theater and, that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and doing plays, British plays of the angry young writers at that time, the John Osbornes, people like that. But I don't remember that really. I don't remember taking improv per se.
Okay.
I just sort of learned on my own, I think, about the give and take uh, of improv. I know people take classes of it now and
Mm-hmm.
did. And of course, if you did Second City and everything like that, I think it's a fabulous technique. And to always say yes, to somebody throws out a line and you add to it, but in your mind, you want to always agree as opposed to say no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's sort of the basic rule of improv. Boy, there are some people out there who just do that so well. But certainly as a puppeteer, it was very useful. We everything we did was scripted, but in a rehearsal or something, if you wanted to throw something out there, you certainly were allowed to, and I would say you kept it in if it
Mm-hmm.
worked well. And certainly in takes, since certainly when I was working with Frank and Jim, they would do endless takes,
Mm-hmm.
endless as the years went by, and neither one of them really were puppeteering anymore. You just didn't get that opportunity to play around as much. They
Right.
would play around a lot and do many, for instance, Bert and Ernie takes, many, many, many. And I'm sure Frank or Jim would come up with something different every once in a while, and everybody would crack up. Um, but yeah, with the pace of television and production and trying not to run overtime, you're not quite as free to do improv.
Right. Right. I have to say, we're only in the public only privy to one or two bits and pieces of what you're talking about, and one of them I think is the camera test for the Muppet movie that are on the DVD. And watching those two, not seeing
Oh,
them, only seeing the puppets, but just seeing Kermit and Fozzie improvise, kind of blows the mind a little bit. And it's like
yeah,
you kind of get
yeah.
why they were such a team. In terms of their Abbott and Costello. Boy, oh boy.
Absolutely. They were an Abbott and Costello of the present day, or Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, or any of those wonderful comedic duos.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter which characters they were doing. It's because of the chemistry between Jim and Frank.
Yeah.
And you look for that with other puppeteers, yourself. What they had was very rare. It was
Mm-hmm.
they were very, very different people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has nothing to do with it. It's just that when they hit the sound stage, the two of them together were hysterical and they loved cracking each other up. And
What?
they both could do it. I mean, Jim gave as good as he got. I
Uh-huh.
I used to think that Frank was really the instigator all the time, but he and I have talked about that, and he said, no, really, really, Jim would instigate a lot of the silliness. So, but I used to love doing the Prairie Dawn stuff with Frank, either
Mm-hmm.
as, Monster Piece Theater. There was a lot of bits we did. Now, this is back quite a few years now, where he was Alistair Cookie. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was born in '80, so I was still seeing,
All right.
original generation
Well,
Muppets.
your listeners may not be familiar, but there was this, it was the beginning of Masterpiece Theater, which
Mm-hmm.
still exists on your PBS television station. But as with most of the parodies that the writers wrote, this was called Monsterpiece Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And Cookie Monster, in an evening jacket and a pipe and slippers, sat in a chair as Alistair Cookie, which was a play on Alistair Cook, who was a British, I don't know what he was. He wasn't really an actor, spokesperson. And he would introduce all the Masterpiece Theater episodes back in the day and did it very well. And so they did a parody of that. And then Prairie Dawn would somehow get in there. And oh, they did a thing on House on the Prairie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then there was a thing where Prairie was on the roof of the house of the on the prairie, and I just remember these crazy things. But either during the take or in between the takes, Frank was just a devil, a just a comedic devil, just coming up with wonderful ad libs and things, and trying to get Prairie Dawn irritated. Uh, yeah, her modus operandi has always been to stay the course, push through, and try to do what her objective was, which is either sell the letter, as I said before, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, finish doing without all these interruptions from Cookie Monster. And the puppets work so well when you have that conflict between two characters.
What percentage of the time when you're doing something like that do you feel free to just go back to being Fran? Or how much of it are you staying in character for the sake of rehearsal or for your own brain? I'm curious how that
Oh, I
breaks
think
down.
I tried to stay in character. I mean, if I had anything to say, I would say it as Prairie, you
Mm-hmm.
know. No, no. I mean, I would laugh, but I didn't get out of character. No, I don't think any of us really did.
It's just so interesting because if someone comes to me and tells me a story about Daniel Day Lewis staying in character all day, I am immediately bored. But when I hear people talk about Muppets and and how much staying in character you have to do, I'm
Right.
fascinated. It's a
But you
total
might,
flip.
yeah, we would ad lib something and
Sure.
but still stay in character, sure.
Mm-hmm. Uh,
But that's so different, really. I can understand having been an actress and playing a character, and most of Daniel Day Lewis's characters, and I think Meryl Streep does the same thing.
mm,
I think she meets an actor at the beginning of the shoot and says, hello, I'm Meryl Streep, and I love your work as an actress, but I'm just telling you that from now on, I'm not going to. I think she did that with Anne Hathaway in The Devil Wears Prada.
okay.
Pretty sure I heard that story because some people just aren't that comfortable in between takes going back to who they are, especially on a movie shoot. I
Mm-hmm.
would think that's very difficult, and it probably is much easier to stay in character than have all these people running up to you going, excuse me or whatever, or hey, boy, on the way over here, I saw this crazy guy on the street,
Mm-hmm.
because people live their lives on the set.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're playing like a really hard-nosed character,
Mm-hmm.
as Meryl was doing, she probably said, I'm not going to goof around in between takes or anything like that. I'm going to stay in character.
It's probably and that makes sense. I guess it's just because you and a million other folks have brought me so much joy. I'm just like what, they get a pass. They can do whatever they want.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? I
I
think
would
that maybe that's why.
say it's funnier to stay in character, but say something so outrageously out of character.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's funny. And I tried to get away with murder as Prairie Dawn
Uh huh.
because here she was supposed to be this little sweet person who, of course, because I guess I was playing her as when they would write stuff or when I kind of returned to the show, she just got stronger and stronger.
Mm-hmm.
But I said some terribly awful things as Prairie Dawn. I mean, naughty things, because it's funny coming out of the mouth of a little girl puppet.
Of course.
I'm just telling tales on myself here. I'm not going to say what I said,
Of
but
course, of course.
that's what's funny is it's so completely out of character for that character to be saying it. But I love cracking people up, if I could.
I mean, to be able, what a joy to be able to not only do that, to have the freedom to do that on set, but also know at the same time, oh yeah, I might be formulating the brains of a few million children right now.
Oh,
That's an interesting thing. Like,
yeah,
what's
but
the
we
camera's
never
role?
thought of that way. I still don't. I would never think about that. Never. And then, like the writers were never told to write for kids. They were hired because they were comedy sketch writers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when the show first began, the last thing they wanted, it would be the kiss of death. Because over the years, I knew some people who wrote children's poetry and children's stories, and they would say, is there some way I can submit some material to the producers of Sesame Street? And I would say, the last thing that you want to say is that you've written for children, because
Mm-hmm.
that's not what they're looking for. They are looking for comedy sketches, period. And I think a lot of people didn't realize that back in the day, that's what made it so good, is that the writing was on two levels, one for the parent or caretaker and the other for the children.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff went over the children's head, but the parents thought it was funny.
I mean, it should be no surprise, like how many of us then end up going into comedy or wanting to go into comedy, or you learn stuff from what you see earliest, and there's no doubt that I learned sketch comedy from Sesame Street and then the Muppet Show, and then stuff with people in it, but definitely
For
those
sure.
two, you know.
Yeah, I think I remember, and you won't, but there was a show when I was a child called the Joan Davis Show. Did you ever hear of her?
I haven't, no.
I'm going to say I don't know her backstory. I don't know what, but the show was called I Married Joan. And she was a rather broad comedian. She was blonde, and she was like, I don't even know. I'm sure my parents didn't watch her, but somehow I discovered her as a child. And I think she was the first person in my life that made me even think about what is funny, or this is a funny woman, and why is she funny? And I think Jim Backus may have played her husband.
Yeah, Jim Backus. I'm just looking that up.
Okay. And this has to be in the 50s, I'm guessing?
Yeah, 52 to 55.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And I know she's passed away, but she was a pretty, kind of a, not slapstick, but she was a broad comedian. And I think I just remember going to school and trying to be like her. So there was something always in me trying to be funny, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I forgot to have that she was an influence on me back in the day.
Isn't it interesting when we dig back and then we sort of realize, oh wow, yeah, okay, I guess that was a
Yeah.
big part of who I was as a kid.
Well, I
Um,
remember the first show my parents let me watch on television was a comedy show. And it was, oh God, just that name just went out of my head. The Red Skelton Show.
oh wow, yes, of course.
And I thought it was going to be scary because I got skeleton and skeleton mixed up. So, but he also was, now he was really slapsticky. But
Yeah.
again, this was, when I was little, and these were, you know, people, at least my parents must have thought they were funny because he was funny because they're the ones that turned the TV on. But yeah, I've always been attracted to funny people, and I mean, there was nothing better than, I mean, when you get Bill Beretta, Dave Goelz, and Frank Oz together, they are lightning quick, and I just laugh and laugh at them. It's hard for me to jump in. I'm kind of talking about Muppet Guys talking now, but it's hard because they can go to areas that I, as a female, cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting balance, just to stay. one of the well, this is a whole other conversation, but yeah, they can say stuff to each other, but they can't say it to me.
Hmm.
It just would be wrong. But Bill Beretta is one crazy funny man. I don't think I've ever laughed harder in my life. Well, maybe when I saw Book of Mormon, I
Oh my
think that
goodness.
that had me on the floor of the theater.
I would love to know, and the answer could be none, but did you grow up with any comedy albums in the house as a kid?
Oh, no.
Assuming you grew up on TV, maybe a little bit of radio.
Ed Sullivan, of course.
Hmm.
That's not a particularly funny show.
Sure.
Um, but no, I don't think anybody in my family was on the same. I think I was adopted. Well, I mean, I wasn't, but I, I just was completely different than my. I have an older sister, and completely different from her. And though my sister is a great laugher, I
Hmm.
mean, she thinks I'm pretty funny most of the time. And when somebody thinks you're funny, you become funnier.
Oh yeah.
It's wonderful. I mean, you give a comedian just the slightest applause and laughter, and then they just can rip and roar. I always start feeling less funny when somebody doesn't laugh,
Sure.
or just doesn't respond. That's a horrible feeling. I
Um,
believe that's called flop sweat when you're on a
uh-huh.
stage.
You do, however, have and they're all, I believe they're all Sesame Street records, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, you're on a ton. Oh, also the Muppet. Oh my goodness. Of course you're on that one. You're on the first Muppet Show album too.
I have a what do you call it? Gold record here, right above me
Ah,
in my office. Yes, I have a few cuts on there, but the whole album is gold, just like in the movies. It's a gold record.
I love it. Oh my
It's the
goodness.
only one, but oh, sure. I guess yeah, back in the day, it was just a small group of us. There weren't that many puppeteers
Mm-hmm.
even back when I started. It was Frank and Jerry and Carol and Jim and me. Who did I
Wow,
forget? Yeah,
that's
five
nuts.
guys and a broad. But it was great. I mean, can you imagine how fun that was for me to go to work?
Oh my gosh. No, I can't.
It was just the best. I mean, here, five extremely funny, talented guys, and it was just wonderful watching them when I wasn't working. It was great.
I mean, and at the same time, also not just that, but keeping up and being, as much a part of everything is like, of course, nobody ever feels that way. They're like, oh no, I was there. I was kind of along for the ride. I was watching everybody else, but then everybody else looks in. And they're like, no, you were a huge chunk of it
Yeah,
too.
right, right. I know exactly what you mean, but when you're in it, you don't even think about it. No, it was a treat. I mean, those were the days, and with John Stone there directing, and this was just the best of the days, and I was lucky enough to be part of them.
What was your experience with puppets at all before this?
Well, so I never played with a puppet ever, not even as a child. I mean, I had dolls, but I never had a puppet. And so when I came to New York and started making the rounds, and the Broadway show that brought me there closed, I would watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood to make me feel better about myself. And then I'd watch this first season of Sesame Street, which would make me laugh. And I saw this ad in one of the theatrical periodicals saying that Jim Henson was looking to train puppeteers for an upcoming Ed Sullivan Christmas special.
Hmm.
And I just took away from that hey, maybe they just need some voices to do some of these characters, or maybe they'll have to see me because I might be good for doing some voices for animated characters at that point. I mean, it was just a sort of an aside in my mind. I didn't really take it very seriously. But
Hmm.
when I met with Jim and Frank, after Jim had said, well, that's okay that you've never played with a puppet. Just look, come on, we'll have a meeting, whatever. So I went over to the offices, and there was a trunk full of puppets and a floor to ceiling mirror, and Jim and Frank Oz, of course. And, we chatted for a while. It was very easy and nothing, nothing scary about it or nervous making, because I just didn't even, I just thought, okay, they want to hear my voices. And then Jim said, well, just for the heck of it, just reach in there, pull out a puppet, and, we'll do some scripts and stuff. So that's exactly what happened. I pulled out a puppet. I wish I could remember which one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was this character that I ended up doing on the Jim Henson Hour, but I'm not positive. She was dressed all in black. Anyway, so I did a voice, and then, I read the scene, and then Jim probably made a suggestion like, what other kind of voice might you do? And I came up with some other voice. And we had some scripts, and we improvised with the characters, and there was a lot of laughing, and it just felt very easy. And I just ended up leaving thinking, well, that was fun. And then the next thing I know, I'm getting a call to do this 2-week workshop where they are training these wannabe puppeteers to puppeteer the Jim Henson way, which is with, and we had to do it with 2 ping pong balls on our knuckles. And, we just sort of learned to lip sync with records. That was really the main thing.
God,
with music.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah. And there was quite a few of us. And after the first week, they let some people go. And Richard Hunt was also in this workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And after the second week, Richard and I were promoted to actually being hired to do this Ed Sullivan Christmas show, and which starred Art Carney, by the way, as a good Santa Claus and a bad Santa Claus. Yeah. And so I kind of learned just by doing this workshop, the basic principles, keeping your puppet straight up and down and making eye contact with the puppet's eyes. And when you do the puppeteering, at least on Sesame Street, it's backwards. So when you think your puppet is leaning right, it's actually leaning left. And it's a lot of hand-eye coordination. So then I did this Ed Sullivan Christmas special. And then when that was over, Jim asked Richard and I if we would do Sesame Street in the fall. Now, this is season 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, this was fun and a lark and all that sort of stuff, but really I'm an actress and I want my face to be seen. And Jim said, well, he was very persuasive. He just said, well, just try it out. It's not for that long a time, and let's, just try it out. So I acquiesced, I said, fine. For one thing, it was a steady paycheck, and I was, an actress struggling to find work at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the first season of Sesame Street, and I guess it was during that season, after a few months, that Jim handed me this little pink puppet, which became Prairie Dawn. And that's where she came from. And so they wanted this sweet little girl, and she was the only little girl amongst all these boys like Bert and Ernie and Grover and Cookie Monster. And she would play the pageant. This was the little hook for her that Jeff Moss or somebody came up with back in the day. She would put on these pageants, which were delightful and very funny, with the guys, and they would be costumed as an ear of corn or, whatever the seasons, they would be spring and winter and fall and summer. And she never, ever learned to play the piano well. She still made terrible notes on the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And she would start all of these pageants by going, oh, welcome to our little play. And that was kind of it. That was her main job the the first year, but gosh, we had fun doing those. I
Oh,
just loved it. So that's how Prairie Dawn came about.
as a kid, I think growing up, people often, and on this show and on other things, often talk about, oh, how did you get into blah, blah, blah? Well, I saw this thing and I was like, maybe I could do that. That looks like something I could do. That looks approachable. And a lot of times those people go into said thing and are very good at it eventually. While the latter part is not true, I still love doing it. Watching behind the scenes stuff of all the Henson stuff, which, when I'm growing up in the 90s, behind the scenes
Yeah.
stuff was all the rage. So they're like, this is how puppets are made. This is how
Oh,
animatronics are made.
yes.
And I'm like, oh crap, I could do that. But knowing that there was a period also where it was still kind of guerrilla and that it was kind of a
Yeah.
little theater group, it makes me so happy to hear. It's just, it's nice to know that these things come from something and also come from, just a group of actors hanging out and screwing around a bit,
Right.
you know?
That's right. That's right. Or the writers getting an idea from something you do
Yes,
on a
right.
particular day, and they say, "Oh, that's a good idea. Let's have Prairie Dawn sitting on a hill reading some wildly inappropriate book for a 6 or 7 year old to read, like War and Peace." I mean, that's what was so fun about the show is that everybody was clever.
Mm-hmm.
The scenic department was clever, and the prop maker was clever, and I guess that was a prop that she be reading this book called War and
Sure.
Peace. I mean, it was just this, just crazy, silly, funny stuff. Sometimes just that amused us. I don't even know that the audience watching the television could read what was on that book,
Mm-hmm.
but we had this wonderful prop guy at the time who made us all laugh hysterically. For instance, all the products in Cooper's store are made up names, but they're all very, very funny.
Mm-hmm.
Like a detergent or a dog food or a cereal. They just must have had a blast in the art department
Mm-hmm.
because we as performers would run in there and go look and see was there something new on the shelves.
Yeah.
It was all very fun, very,
Oh,
very fun.
that's so good. I love that. I like that kind of world building that also gives you the freedom to be fun.
Yes,
You know.
everything now is so serious and so, oh, I don't know, and we're afraid the children might not, it's very careful now.
Mm-hmm.
We just tried to be funny and also get the educational thing in,
Yeah.
and now I feel it's gone away from being as much fun and
Mm-hmm.
funny. I think the children who are watching now are so young that parents feel comfortable putting their children at 1 year old is sitting in front of a television. So the writing has gotten a little simplified, let's say.
It's probably I have to imagine it's also got to be a generation learning from a generation who learned from a generation
Well,
because
you're dead right, Jason. Yes,
because
yes.
there's this thing that, and I've noticed it in myself as a writer, when I've tried to write for children, I'm like, I'm writing, what I'm doing is a parody of a stereotype of children's writing. This is not good. So that's why I've stopped, and I'm
Oh
like, I will
yeah.
go back when I've got a good idea and I'm not talking down to kids because that's the last thing I want to do.
Well,
But
that's right.
you know,
That's right.
you sort of like, oh no, this is what this is, right? And then you go in and you write it, or you go in and you do a voice, you go in and you act, and it's like, oh no, I'm doing a thing based on a thing based on a thing, and that's when
Right.
take a step back and maybe you'll find it.
Yeah, yeah, Sesame Street did it pretty well, but
Yeah,
better to invent something else. But
right.
it really was very important to all of the creative people that this show be fun and funny.
Mm-hmm.
Education they felt would just be slipped in the back door. Like the commercials were numbers and letters,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, well, it's just it was a different time. But anyway, that's how I got involved with Sesame Street.
You're also there for the first season of SNL because you did a few
Oh my
performances
gosh.
with the, oh my goodness gracious,
Yeah, yeah.
what was that like?
But, well, it just wasn't our best stuff,
Uh-huh.
because we I think when the Sesame Street writers write projects for Sesame Street puppets, they know what to do, and
Yeah,
we were writing with the SNL. I mean, we were performing to sketches that the SNL writers were working, and I don't think any of us thought they were really appropriate or
sure.
didn't play to the skills of the Muppets. And that's why they didn't stay on the show. It was just two very different ideas of uh, what the Muppets were good at.
That
Uh,
makes sense. I would imagine at some point there are probably people who are just like, oh no, those are props. They just don't get it.
they didn't get it, yeah, perhaps so, or they didn't. I mean, they may have liked Sesame Street, but I don't know. I don't know who came up with that concept,
Mm-hmm.
but that was not a fun show to do. It
Mm-hmm.
really wasn't. It was not lighthearted and silly. And
Right.
I think Jim and Frank were never, 100% crazy about the script. So, it was a nice idea, but it would, I don't know, I suppose it would be like throwing Mike Nichols in with, God, I don't know, Hassan Minaj. I don't
Uh-huh.
know,
Uh-huh.
just something, it was apples and oranges. That's all.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's perfectly reasonable. I understand
Yeah.
that. If we I to go back to the album for a second, which by the way, that whole performance, the stage performance was directed by Arthur Penn, which is I find interesting. It's got,
He
is
which one now? You mean,
sorry, yeah, An Evening with Mike Nichols and Elaine May, the original stage version was
oh,
directed by Arthur Penn.
oh,
Yeah, it's a all of their shows, they've got such prestige attached to them, and then of course, obviously, Mike Nichols becomes the prestige director a couple generations
yeah.
later.
Well, yeah, yeah.
My goodness.
That's interesting. Arthur Penn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
This I don't know. This is one. So I've got a record wall in here in my office, and there's
Oh,
only, what are we talking about? 12, 13, 14. Only 14 albums on here. And that's one of them for sure.
hmm.
It's always been sitting there. I love this album so much. I can never, I can never quite nail it down why, but I think you did a pretty darn good job at the beginning, just talking about the, the dichotomies of these characters. Do you have a favorite sketch on this record
Wow.
of the four, the only four
Yeah,
that are on?
right, right. Now, okay. Let me think back. I think disc jockey. No, wait a minute, not disc jockey. I think telephone. I
Yeah.
think telephone is probably my favorite. Do they have a lot of other albums?
They have. I'm going to get this wrong, and people get angry at me. I want to say three or four. Let's see. Oh no, is it just the three? See, this is what hurts my brain, is because it's so in my. So yeah, 58. They had improvisations to music, which I'm less familiar with, but I have it. This one, which I've heard a million times and love it, in 61. And then the next year, 62, they had Examined Doctors, and it's all just doctor based sketches.
Aha.
Yeah.
Okay, because I should probably listen to some of them just for my own enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, they were special, but boy, they paved the way for an awful lot of other comedy teams,
They
you
did.
know.
Yeah. And then obviously, and then again, a huge, huge impact on the world of film and theater and everything else.
Yes, yes, indeed.
I
Well,
always,
there are a lot of people like that. They start off in one area and all of a sudden they've blossomed into some other area, but it's all connected.
yeah,
People would say to me, because I've done some movies and I've done television and I've
yeah,
done the Muppets and I've done voiceovers, and they say, well, what did you like best? And I sort of feel like, well, they all informed each other.
mm-hmm,
It's not like I'm working in a grocery store. They're all part of the performing arts, and I think what I do with my voice has helped me. Whatever they're all connected, is what I'm saying. I think they're all connected, and I think writers can easily jump from one medium to another. Also,
mm-hmm.
I think if you're a gifted writer, you're a gifted writer.
Absolutely, absolutely. And once you learn to improvise, the line gets blurred. I
Yeah,
think and
yeah. And
writers don't like to admit that, but
look how many comedians are excellent, serious actors.
yeah,
Like Ray Romano. I mean, somebody could say to him, well, what do you like better, to do comedy like Everybody Loves Raymond or play a serious role? What did I just see him in? Bad Education with Hugh Jackman that was
Mm-hmm.
on a streaming thing. And then he was also in the latest Martin Scorsese movie. And I bet you he can't say that he likes one better than the other. They're different,
Mm-hmm.
but you're still playing human beings, who have wants, wishes, desires, families, allergies,
Mm-hmm.
and the more you know who your character is, the better you're going to be, the more
Yeah.
specific you're going to be.
That's, I mean, what's funny is I normally at the end I'm like, hey, why don't you tell me, give me 2 sentences why this album is worth talking about. But everything we've kind of talked around it, and we've already said it. Like, why listen
Yes.
to this album? I think we've already talked about it because normally we don't delve into character concepts as much or the acting end of it. And I
Ah,
love
okay.
that is your only approach, and therefore that's all we've really talked about. And that's, I don't
Okay.
know, it's a perfect argument for why to listen to this record. And and if for no other reason, see if you can do an impression of these two because holy cow, their voices, I love his disc jockey too. I still think the telephone character, which is more just normal guy, is again probably my favorite too. But I do love his
Uh-huh.
dumb disc jockey voice, which is so
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
him just calling Ernest Hemingway Papa, that's what we call him, Papa. Just the whole, oh, such a schmuck. I love him so much. Such a good.
I
Oh,
know, I know. I would love to ask Mike Nichols who influenced him.
I know. I know. I will tell you, while he was around, I tried, and Elaine May has not done an interview famously since 1967. So I still,
Right?
yeah,
Wow.
I still try, but she still does stuff, but she's just like, I don't give a crap. I don't need to talk about my stuff. It's like, okay, I respect that. I'll still try
Well,
every
maybe
once in a
one
while.
day she'll change your mind. I would keep trying.
I think I will, casually,
You know,
slowly, here and there.
if she heard such nice things said about her, I would
Right?
think she would like to talk about her past a little bit, but I don't know. I can't speak for other people.
Of course. I mean,
Maybe she's writing a book,
oh my,
and
that
doesn't
book
want
would
to give
be,
away too much or something. I wish she would write a book.
how good would that book be? Holy cow.
Yeah, yeah.
My goodness. Yeah, this is a brilliant album and it's always worth revisiting. It is one that I do not tire of. And there are a few albums we've talked about literally 7 times on this show, and those even though they're the ones I grew up with the most, I kind of am growing weary of. This one so far, no. No.
Good, good.
It's so good. So this episode is going to come out.
You take care.
Hey, so where can people find you online if you want them to? Is there anything coming up that we should keep our eye out for that you're in?
Gosh, not really. I wish we'd done this earlier because we did, we meaning the Muppet Guys Talking Group. We did a fundraiser for a hospital in Elmhurst, Queens, just last weekend, but you can still donate there. Here, I'll tell you what. Tell people to go to MuppetGuysTalking.com.
Mm-hmm.
Muppet Guys Talking being one long word, /Jim.
Okay.
And I believe they might be able to see a replay of it. It was a
Yes.
Zoom call.
Yeah.
We had about 10,000 people
I was one
trying
of
to
them.
get on. Oh, you were? Oh my
Yes.
gosh, did you? Then the site crashed. You know that.
Yeah.
And then there's a replay. I mean, there is a replay out there. Did you ever get to see it?
I watched the whole thing as it went, once it came up, and I did get an
Oh,
email
okay.
the other day saying, hey, by the
Okay.
way, you can watch the replay here, and I'll find that link and make sure that gets included. So
Yeah, that would be great. That's really what people have to go to, I think. Oh, good. Well, you're certainly knowledgeable about all things Muppets, I can tell.
I wish I were more. Can I tell you one thing I've been trying to do? So, when the world wasn't burning, was try to get and speak to, and I apologize for not remembering her name, but the archivist, the Muppet archivist, because
Karen Falk.
thank you. I've been trying, and I'm hoping once things straighten out that will happen because.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, I want to walk in a room and see how much felt can make me cry. That's basically, I think, my goal.
Well,
Also,
you've got to go to the Jim Henson workshop then,
believe me,
which is
that's
in
a dream.
Queens, and you will see
Hmm.
all of those wonderful, talented elves working away on this project or that project.
It
I don't
is
know
a
what's
huge deal.
happening now. I
I
assume the
know.
office is closed.
Right.
We are speaking in the time of the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
So I'll bet she's working from home too. But she's a terrific gal,
Mm-hmm.
and she, it would be very valuable for her to talk to you and vice versa. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that at some point. I also will say, please, definitely, people, watch that stream. There's one thing that comes up a lot, so I'm a really big fan of, well, a few people, but only two people that were lost in my lifetime, and Phil Hartman and Jim Henson. And Phil Hartman was a god of mine, and I have since met a ton of his friends, and I've kind of, it's a sideways way of meeting them. You'll never get to meet them, right? And this is I appreciate you being my sideways way of meeting Jim Henson, because you were there for such an early point, and you're
I'm
such a huge part of it. But another big thing about that stream is, whenever I ask people about Phil Hartman, the first thing they say is, "Oh, so tragic." It's like, no, can we please not make that the first thing we talk about? And that's not the first thing with Jim Henson. You're like, oh yes, all you guys talk about are your wonderful memories of Jim, and that's all that really stuck around. And I think people owe it to people they care about to kind of make sure that their legacy is about what they did and gave us, not how they were lost. And I thought that stream was beautiful because of that.
Oh, I think that's great, Jason. Absolutely. And I also was a huge Phil Hartman fan. Oh my gosh, such a funny guy.
Oh, yeah.
He was brilliant, really brilliant. I miss him too. Oh my goodness. There's tons of talented people out there, though. Yes. But it's been a pleasure speaking with you, really and truly.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And thank you, by the way, for doing Prairie Dawn for a second. It was very nice. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah. Hey, stay safe out there.
Thank you. You too.
Take care.
Thank you guys for listening. And as always, have a good thing. Comedy on Vinyl is a production of StolenDress Entertainment. It is produced by Mike Warden and is hosted and edited by Jason Klom. Our theme song was composed and performed by Richard Levinson. You can email us at podcast@comedyonvinyl.com. You can also send snail mail to StolenDress Entertainment, P.O. Box 805, Burbank, California, 91503. Subscribe to Comedy on Vinyl on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you can find podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It helps. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Comedy on Vinyl, or find everything in one place at comedyonvinyl.com. A major portion of Comedy on Vinyl has been underwritten by Stand Up Records. Please visit standuprecords.com for all your comedy needs, and tune in to the new Stand Up Records channel available on the Roku, where you can also find select episodes of this podcast. Visit StolenDress.com to listen to our other podcasts, watch videos, and imbibe freely of our multimedia content going back 15 plus years. StolenDress Entertainment.
Hey, it's my turn. Ah!